Hello everyone, it's me, Matthew, here with the NOLAnerdcast interviewing Rafiq Mandal of the IndieGameMag.com. As you can see, I am sadly debearded. It's babyface Matthew time. If you saw our previous, hey, look at that, I'm professional. If you looked at our previous top 30 games of the generation show, you'll notice that we were both sporting luxurious beards, but today I have to give it to you.
That's fine. I appreciate it. It doesn't steal the thunder from my beard.
Exactly, which it's very luxurious and classy, I think is the correct word.
Thank you.
How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Why don't you break it down for people what it is that we are here to talk about?
Well, we're here to talk about IndieGameMag.com. We basically are following as much indie game news, new games. We try to write previews and reviews. We try to just talk about only indie game stuff. AAA's got plenty of coverage. We don't need to get in on that. So we just want to see what's going on otherwise and what we think is a more artistic format
But
for video
without you,
games.
how's anyone going to hear about this little game called Halo 5?
No, I mean, we don't really need to devote any time to that. They can put themselves on commercials. They can afford a commercial on TV. No indie game can really afford a commercial on TV.
It's your Game of War.
I guess that's
But is
true.
that a game?
That's not really an indie game. I would not treat that as an indie game either.
Right.
We try to at least differentiate between how an indie studio isn't really an indie studio unless they have no real... they're not part of a larger organization, or they don't have a big publisher backing them. Anybody with EA shouldn't really be considered an indie game in sort of our standard, because they can get the coverage they need. And that's what we do. We go for the guys that don't have that kind of backing. Their games may not be as good, or they simply don't have the experience to get out like a decent press release. So we are here to kind of hold their hands and write the news story for them.
There's nothing wrong with that, because this generation of video game consoles has really proven indie games are amazing.
Yeah.
I've been a big fan of them. I mean, I think they blew up around the time of the 360 when they had the Xbox Live Arcade, and that's when you started hearing about them more, like Castle Crashers and Braid and Limbo and stuff. And now it's just indie games get coverage at E3, and they get on live press conference coverage, and that just would not have happened 10 years ago. Steam is a huge part of it. Mm-hmm. Do you have a platform that you focus on? Are you mostly PC indie games? Do you play on the Xbox or the Wii or the
Not
PS4?
by choice, but a lot of the games that we follow are on PC. Just because it's much cheaper for any starting.
Steam's always. I mean, every Kickstarter begins with a PC release, and
exactly.
The stretch goal is a console release. But yeah, PC. I mean, Steam. You just get out to everybody.
You get your green light, and you've already got some capital to work with in order to keep working on your game, and you have to go with them with a decent product, otherwise it won't get anywhere. So it's a decent system to make sure that you have something that you've worked on, and people that want it really want it.
Now, what do you do for Indie Game Mag? And it's Indie Game Mag, not magazine, right?
Well, we have the Indie Game magazine. IndieGameMag.com is the URL.
Okay.
Because otherwise it would be too long. But the actual magazine, I'm one of the staff writers. I write, for the magazine itself, I write either reviews or previews. Sometimes I've written the screenshot monthlies that we do. But we just try to, and we don't have a ranking. We don't use 4 out of 5 stars or anything like that. We try to just let the article tell the story as to describing the gameplay, the graphics. Maybe is it worth your money? Is it not?
Yeah, Kotaku does a similar thing, and I think that's because when you put a number on it, that's all people focus on. They scroll down, read the number, and then that's it. Your entire review means nothing to them. They go, I got an 8.5 out of 10.
And it's not always an accurate way of depicting the game, especially when you consider that every game is different. Just putting a random number on it doesn't really mean anything. Knowing that a particular game is a great RPG, but it has terrible graphics, or comparably terrible graphics, like ASCII graphics, might throw someone off. But I would give that game, which is an actual example, I would give that game a high ranking.
Okay. And I mean, it's similar just in the case of, because indie games especially are more experimental, because they're smaller scale, you can't grade them at the same level. Like, I remember when that game Gone Home came out. That is not on the same level of game, or the Stanley Parable, stuff like that, versus your Call of Duty.
Right.
You can't use the same grading scale because it's just not the same experience.
Yeah, no, it's true. You try not to compare. At least in my experience, I have tried not to compare it to AAA games unless there's something in it that just thinks,
right.
wow, you've already gotten to this point. It's usually not graphics, but that's what makes the game better because they're never focusing on graphics.
Now, do you guys follow things like Indiegogo and Kickstarter and campaigns like that?
We try to as much as we can, yeah. And then people that come to us to try and get coverage, they'll send us links to Kickstarter and Indiegogo whenever they're able to. We're not able to cover everything, unfortunately, because we're kind of limited manpower, you know.
And also, indie games, like, they're everywhere now.
They're constantly being made. There's so many games under development at any one time.
Oh yeah, I back so many different indie games on Kickstarter. I love them because, especially when they are the type of games that cover genres that no longer get the AAA treatment.
Yeah.
A lot of strategy games or puzzle games, even like old school 2D platformers. If it wasn't for indie games, that would be a dead genre by now. So I love the fact that indie games keep that stuff alive for me. Now, as someone who's worked there for about a year, you said, right? Mm-hmm. What has been one of your favorite games that you've discovered via working for the publication?
Honestly, Caves of Cud is, like, right off the bat, is one that I keep talking about.
What's it
I
called?
Love it. Caves of Cud, and you spell Cud Q-U-D.
Okay. Break that one down. Give them some free press.
All right, cool. I'm sure they'll be happy for this. It's a very old school retro RPG using ASCII graphics.
So that's what you said when you said actual
That's
example.
the one I was talking about.
Right.
I really like that one. The story is you're kind of a survivor just within this fantasy science fiction fused realm where a great civilization, futuristic civilization, fell like maybe 1,000 years ago, and their sort of technology exists but in relics. Mm-hmm. And there's a place that's largely unexplored, kind of like a temple or several civilizations that is called Cud. So you're an explorer in the Caves of Cud, and it is beyond that. There are so many secrets that you have to just kind of learn how to survive in this world. There's no tutorial. You die often, but you're able to make any kind of character you kind of want. There was a great board game as an example to like illustrate this, but you can essentially pick a human or a mutant, and a mutant has any kind of different mutations. You can have a tortoiseshell, you can breathe fire, your hands can blast ice, like sort of force powers, and this level of versatility and customization makes you just able to explore the same world, but any which way you want. Fight the different enemies any way that works with your strategy, or to try different kinds.
Now, when you cover games, are there ever games that are just so bad that you don't want to cover them, but you have to?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
It's just it's an unfortunate reality of the industry. But how do you motivate yourself to continue playing these bad games enough to cover them fairly? Because, you know, it's easy to just blow it off and write a crap piece, but you want to give them the fair coverage.
Yeah. Well, I try to at least, that's devoted to time, putting in the right amount of time into a game, and also trying to make actual progress within the game. So, like, if I can only get past the first level, I'm not really willing to write that much about the article, or at least not without the disclaimer. I could only get this far the entire time after so many hours of gameplay. I lost track of the question.
How do you motivate yourself to keep playing bad games?
Yeah, there are also so many more average games. Yeah. Like, there aren't amazing indie games all the time, but you'd be surprised by how many relatively decent average games are going. Stories are kind of the weakness there, but AAA games are suffering from that too, so it's not really that different. And you get to see a lot of people just experiment. It's really fun for a developer to go through indie games too, because they just get to see these different kinds of actual, like, how to make a game, how to make different gameplay interesting, and they're able to like experience it. I don't know if you realize that a lot of AAA developers are moving into the indie sphere. Yes, because they're able to get all the freedom they need. Like, just Banner Saga is a great example.
Yeah, Banner Saga or Wasteland 2, Divinity Original Sin, all these huge Kickstarter like success stories are people that move from AAA to indie because it gives them the freedom to do what they actually wanted. Those games are a perfect example. Those CRPG isometric art, like Baldur's Gate style stuff. They're making a resurgence in the indie game scene.
Yeah.
Because and now their success in the indie game scene, they're getting actual physical console releases, and I love that.
It's great.
It's like an Ouroboros of awesome.
We're seeing more PS4 and Xbox One stuff come through into our whenever we get a news piece. Like I'm really happy about it. I'm ecstatic because that'll make it also easier for me to keep playing the game.
So where can people go to find your magazine and follow your work or anyone else's work and basically get the breakdown on all upcoming indie games?
They can go to indiegamemag.com. They can go there for pretty much everything. You can get a subscription to the actual magazine. It is $2 per month, I believe, so it should be about $24 for a year. I might be wrong, I'm sorry, but it's around that level. And we're always trying to expand the magazine, so you usually get about, I think, just under 100 pages of relatively exclusive content. Screenshot Monthlies will give you like a lot of little bits about indie games, and then reviews and interviews, whatever we can get our hands on.
And do you guys have a Twitter?
We do, at IndieGameMag.
Boom,
perfect.
There it is.
Easy.
But do you have a way that fans of your writing can interact with you?
I have a Twitter account.
Oh, well, there we go.
I at least know that. I am at PilotAceRM. The letters RM at the end of that.
All right, there we go. Now, is there anything you want to leave off with, tell fans of indie games or you in general? Because I'm sure there's some. Mm-hmm. Some people have got to like you, right?
I certainly hope so.
I know I do.
Thank you. That's what I want to hear. He knows how to stroke the ego, this one.
I was going to say not just egos, but then I realized that this is a family show, goddammit. Right. So.
Okay. Something really... Whenever you get the chance to you see a Steam greenlight, or you see a Kickstarter, or you see people just talking about their game on blogs and stuff, talk back. They want the feedback. They want to be able to talk to people about how their game is doing, if it's good, if it's not, what might be changed, because they don't know everything there is to know, and they would love to learn more, and they would love to make their game better. Whenever there's a developer that gets angry at the feedback they get from their people, it's just not worth it. It's not a good sign. It's not a good sign, and then you don't really want games from them. So you really should just talk to your developers, the developers of your game, follow them as well. Knowing the studio that makes a game you like is not a bad sign to see if you can find other games that they've made that's very interesting.
Right.
And fit your scene.
Okay, well then I have one last question for you.
Cool.
And this is just, how have you felt, as someone who's been in contact with developers and stuff, because you never hear too much about when it comes to crowdsourced games, you hear about the major successes, but then all you ever really hear about are these horror stories of Kickstarters that have failed and have taken the money and never released the product. And I feel like that gives a bad stigma to it, even though I personally have never experienced that yet. As someone who's more in touch with the development community, how has that affected people, that the negative coverage seems so much more prevalent?
It's pretty bitter, actually. People are very untrusting of Kickstarters now, especially because of, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but it's been more than a handful. It was a lot of money.
Right.
And the responses that they gave were atrocious. It just showed that they didn't care. They were just trying to get money out of that. And maybe it's better that I didn't actually name anything then. I don't want that to come up. But developers are taking matters into their own hands a little bit. Kickstarter is not the only crowdfunding platform out there. Indiegogo is out there. There's another one called Fig. Okay. FIG.com, and it's more like it's a crowdsource, but it also offers actual investment opportunities. So instead of getting a reward, you're actually getting some funds back, and that is also a department that only works on one game every couple of months that they'll crowdfund, and then they get to be mentored by actual indie development leaders.
Nice.
Very veterans that have either come from AAA or have made AAA quality games in the indie sphere.
That's what's up.
So there are options coming out there. As long as people don't give up, they can actually make something out of it.
Cool. Well, then our final question for you is our bonus question we ask all of our interviewees at San Diego Comic-Con and other stuff. Gun to your head, if you had to choose, cake or pie?
Pie.
See, I knew I liked you. That is the correct answer. You know, I thought there would be a lot more heathens out there saying cake, but it seems the majority of awesome people like pie.
Cake is easy. Pie you have to put your love into.
That's what I'm saying. Plus, no one actually... Pizza. They call it a pizza pie.
Call it a pizza pie.
It's not a pizza cake.
I'm
just saying. So, I'm Matthew.
I'm
Rafiq. IndieGameMag.com or at IndieGameMag if you're on the Twitters. Since we don't give review scores here, I give this interview a smiley face.
Woohoo! Smiley face.
Boom! I drew that before the interview. I didn't know how I would utilize it, but then I was like, let's go for it.
We all prepared for this today.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Cool.